So if this story is a metaphor about something to do with life, then it could be as real for us today as it was for the people walking the Emmaus Road 40 years after the death of Jesus, as it was for Jesus. Because I want to suggest to you that the road to Emmaus is a very familiar one for many, many people. It is the road that we walk after we have experienced a deep disappointment, after we have been disillusioned, and with all the sadness and remorse and pain and anger and grief and loneliness and fear and despair that goes with that. The Emmaus Road is the path of disillusionment and of discouragement. And many people in life walk that path. Whenever I read the story of the travelers on the road to Emmaus, I see a few things that they do which are in common with my experience of the Emmaus Road. One is you can hardly sit still. When you're dealing with such despair and disappointment and heartache, sometimes you just want to sit there, but other times you want to get up. In my family, when we're in the depths of despair, we house clean. If you saw my house, you'd know that my life has been pretty good lately. But it's true, eh? Like in the midst of what these disciples were going through, one of their number has betrayed the Jesus that they loved. And they said, we thought we knew Judas. Why would he do that? At first, their minds don't even want to come up with that scenario or deal with it, because their heartache and their disappointment and their sense of loss of both the Judas that they knew and the Judas who became is so devastating. And then there's the death of Jesus. He was such a remarkable leader who said, you know what? Whatever you've heard about God, set that aside, because God is a God of love. God sent me to bring this message that love is universal and love is the way of life. And now Jesus, these two walking this devastated road, say, and now he's been silenced. Cruelly died. Oh, can our hearts bear anything more? Have you ever been there? Then they have to deal with their loss of the vision, because their lives are hard. And Jesus really responded and rallied the people who were the lowest of the low, and he gave them hope. And now what they're dealing with is We had such hope that our lives could be better. And it is not going to be in our lifetime. And so Jesus comes along with them on this road, and he just listens to them. And I don't know about your experience, but when I am walking the Emmaus Road, to just have someone listen to me, to hear the depths of the despair and discouragement and disillusionment that has happened. And then Jesus feeds them. They get together and they prepare food. One of the things that always goes, I think, when we're on the road to Emmaus, is our ability to do self-care. We forget that we need to eat. We forget that we need to rest. We forget to take care of ourselves because it feels like our heart is ripped out of us, and that's all we can focus on. But Jesus, this stranger in the story, says, eat and drink. And you'll recognize, perhaps, as you take care of yourself, that all is not lost. And then they kind of see a glimmer as they get well enough to think differently. And then Jesus, this stranger who has walked with them, says, it's kind of a reality check. Hey, what did you think? What were your expectations? Is it really surprising that a revolutionary leader was killed for the ideas that he espoused? Pastor Dawn is a person that I follow, and she told the story of being in a chaplaincy ministry when she was a student, and she thought she was surviving quite well. And then she had a 48-hour weekend when she was the one on call. And during that weekend, 6 people died. Others were hurt in multiple vehicle accidents. And she left her 48-hour shift absolutely devastated. And she was never, ever going to stay in ministry. And she was never going to be around that kind of horror and grief. And she wanted to know, where was God? And she railed against the heavens in her grief and her disappointment and her disillusionment, because she couldn't fix everything for the people who came to her. All she could do was listen to them, bring food, get them a coffee. She couldn't take away the grief and the discouragement and the disillusionment and the despair. And if she couldn't take it away, she didn't want to be there. Well, she smashed up her beloved car, or scraped it up on her way, and she didn't know where she was going to go, and she ended up at the house of a friend of hers who was a professor who had walked through this path before. And she came in, and the friend could see it on her face that she was at her limit, at her wit's end. And she just opened her arms and held her while she cried. And then she said, "You need sleep. Go and rest. When you wake, I'll feed you." And so that's what happened. She tells the story wonderfully, and then she woke and there was food there to nourish her body. But she had still said, "I cannot go on, I'm quitting." And the friend gently said to her, What did you think your life in ministry was going to be like? What did you think life was going to be like? And finally, the friend got her back to work. And as she was there, she met with other people who were also discussing and debriefing and talking about the horror of the weekend. And she became one with them as she realized that she doesn't have control about anybody, over anybody or anything. Real ultimate control. But that there were things she could do to help. Now, Mary Oliver has a poem. It's called Heavy. And Heavy, the poem is, "That time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still, I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even amongst lions, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it, when you cannot and would not put it down. So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind and maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. That's Heavy by Mary Oliver. The Road to Emmaus is a story that happens in many, many people's lives. And it is as true today as it was during the day of the disciples, during the day of Jesus, during the day before. It's not the load we carry, but how we carry it. And the story of the road to Emmaus says that in the friends, in the breaking of the bread, in our startled awareness, we are not alone. There is a Christ figure that will be present to walk the road with us. And at first we may not recognize that presence. But at some point, our eyes will be opened and we will know we are not alone. Well, thank you for listening.